that she misled the American people over and over and over again while under federal investigation.
When do we beat Mexico at the border? They're laughing at us, at our stupidity. And now they're beating us economically. They are not our friend.
In the absence of the truth, bullcrap prevails. So here come the truth, jokers. Look at what's been going on. All the people are coming out, the dang Walking Dead. You know, the people who don't pay attention to politics until the election cycle comes around. And they get so emotional. They get all into it, and, you know, they pick their sides and they fight against each other. But in reality, they ain't getting nowhere with it. So you're falling for the little racist angle. You're fighting each other. You're ripping up the signs. And, oh yeah, let me go to this. This is something here. How is it that this little fake joker right here comes out and endorses Donald Trump? Now, elections are all about perception. So when you see this guy endorsing Donald Trump, you will say, oh, well, Donald Trump is a racist because he's endorsing Donald Trump. But here's the thing. What is KKK? Well, the KKK was created by the Democrats. The KKK still belongs to the Democrats. So this guy right here knows that if he comes out and throws his support behind Donald Trump, it's going to get the reaction of this. That's the only reason why he's coming out and doing that. Lyndon B. Johnson did the same thing in the 1964 election. He made an ad saying that Barry Goldwater was endorsed by the KKK. But how is he going to say that when the KKK is a democratic entity? They are the prop, and I'm talking about the KKK. The Democrats are the most racist party in history, the only party in American history to kill black people because they wanted them to vote Democrat. Lyndon B. Johnson said, I'll have those N-words voting Democrat for the next 200 years. When he was talking about N-words, he was talking about black people. And black people, they still vote Democrat.
When Chris Stevens was killed in Benghazi, Libya, on the anniversary of September 11th last year, it was only the 6th time that the United States had lost an ambassador to its enemies. The events of that night have been overshadowed by misinformation, confusion, and intense partisanship. But for those who lived through it, there's nothing confusing about what happened, and they share a sense of profound frustration because they say they saw it coming. Tonight, you'll hear for the first time from a security officer who witnessed the attack. He calls himself Morgan Jones, a pseudonym he's using for his own safety. A former British soldier, he's been helping to keep US diplomats and military leaders safe for the last decade. On a night he describes as sheer hell, Morgan Jones snuck into a Benghazi hospital that was under the control of Al-Qaeda terrorists, desperate to find out if one of his close friends from the US Special Mission was the American he had been told was there.
The story will continue in a moment.
I was dreading seeing who it was, you know. It didn't take long to get to the room, and I could see in through the glass. And I didn't even have to go into the room to see who it was. I knew who it was immediately.
Who was it?
It was the ambassador. He was dead. Yeah, shocking.
Morgan Jones said he'd never felt so angry in his life. Only hours earlier, Ambassador Chris Stevens had sought him out, concerned about the security at the U.S. Special Mission compound, where Morgan was in charge of the Libyan Guard Force. Now the ambassador was dead, and the U.S. compound was engulfed in flames and overrun by dozens of heavily armed fighters. Although the attack began here, the more organized assault unfolded about a mile across the city at a top-secret CIA facility known as the Annex. It lasted more than 7 hours and took 4 American lives.
We do not have any indication at this point of premeditation or pre-planned attacks. But it is
contrary to the White House's public statements, which were still being made a full week later. It's now well established that the Americans were attacked by al-Qaeda in a well-planned assault. 5 months before that night, Morgan Jones first arrived in Benghazi, in eastern Libya, about 400 miles from the capital, Tripoli. He thought this would be an easy assignment compared to Afghanistan and Iraq, but on his first drive through Benghazi, he noticed the black flags of al-Qaeda flying openly in the streets, and he grew concerned about the guard force as soon as he pulled up to the U.S. compound.
There was nobody there that we could see, and then we realized they were all inside drinking tea, laughing and joking.
What did you think?
Instantly I thought we're going to have to get rid of all these guys.
Morgan Jones's job was training the unarmed guards who manned the compound's gates. A second Libyan force, an armed militia hired by the State Department, was supposed to defend the compound in the event of an attack. Morgan had nothing to do with the militia, but they worried him so much he could not keep quiet.
Because I was saying, these guys are no good, you need to get them out of here.
You also kept saying, if this place is attacked, these guys are not going to stand and fight.
Yeah, I used to say it all the time. In the end, I got quite bored of hearing my own voice saying it.
We have one option: leave Benghazi or you will be killed.
Green Beret commander, Lieutenant Colonel Andy Wood, was one of the top American security officials in Libya. Based in Tripoli, he met with Ambassador Stevens every day. The last time he went to Benghazi was in June, just 3 months before the attack. While he was there, al-Qaeda tried to assassinate the British ambassador. Wood says to him it came as no surprise, because al-Qaeda, using a familiar tactic, had stated their intent in an online posting, saying they would attack the Red Cross, the British, and then the Americans in Benghazi. And you watched as they attacked
did,
the Red Cross and the British mission, and the only ones left
Or us. They made good on 2 out of the 3 promises. It was a matter of time till they captured the 3rd one.
And Washington was aware of that.
They knew we monitored it. We included that in our reports to both State Department and DOD.
Andy Wood told us he raised his concerns directly with Ambassador Stevens 3 months before the U.S. compound was overrun.
I made it known in a country team meeting, you are going to get attacked. You are going to get attacked in Benghazi. It's going to happen. You need to change your security profile.
Shut down the special mission.
Shut down operations. Move out temporarily or change locations within the city. Do something to break up the profile because you are being targeted. They're watching you. The attack cycle is such that they're in their final planning stages.
Wait a minute. You said they're in the final planning stages of an attack on the American mission in Benghazi.
It was apparent to me that that was the case. Reading all these other attacks that were occurring, I could see what they were staging up to. It was obvious.
We have learned the U.S. already knew that this man, senior al-Qaeda leader Abu Anas al-Libi, was in Libya, tasked by the head of al-Qaeda to establish a clandestine terrorist network inside the country. Al-Libi was already wanted for his role in bombing 2 U.S. embassies in Africa.
It was a frightening piece of information.
Because it meant what?
It raised the stakes, changed the game.
Greg Hicks, who testified before Congress earlier this year, was Ambassador Stevens' deputy, based in Tripoli. A 22-year veteran of the Foreign Service with an impeccable reputation. And in that environment, you were asking for more security assets, and you were not getting them.
That's right.
Did you fight that?
I was in the process of trying to frame a third request, but it was not allowed to go forward.
So why didn't you get the help that you needed and that you asked for?
I really don't know. I, in fact, would like to know the answer to that question.
In the months prior to the attack, Ambassador Stevens approved a series of detailed cables to Washington, specifically mentioning, among other things, the al-Qaeda flag has been spotted several times, flying over government buildings. When the attack began on the evening of September 11th, Ambassador Stevens immediately called Greg Hicks, who was back in Tripoli.
Ambassador said that the consulate's under attack, and then the line cut.
Do you remember the sound of his voice?
Oh yeah, it's indelibly imprinted on my mind.
How did he sound?
He sounded frightened.
In Benghazi, Morgan Jones, who was at his apartment about 15 minutes away, got a frantic call from one of his Libyan guards.
I could hear gunshots, and he said, there's men coming into the mission. His voice, he was scared. He could tell he was really scared, and he was running. I could tell he was running.
His first thought was for his American friends, the State Department agents who were pinned down inside the compound, and he couldn't believe it when one of them answered his phone.
I said, what's going on? He said, oh, we're getting attacked. And I said, how many? And he said, they're all over the compound. And I was shocked. I didn't know what to say. And I said, well, just keep fighting. I'm on my way.
Morgan's guards told him the armed Libyan militia that was supposed to defend the compound had fled, just as Morgan had predicted. His guards, unarmed and terrified, sounded the alarm, but they were instantly overwhelmed by the attackers.
They said, we're here to kill Americans, not Libyans. So they give them a good beating. Pistol whipped them, beat them with their rifles, and let them go.
We're here to kill Americans.
That's what they said, yeah.
Not Libyans.
Yeah.
About 30 minutes into the attack, a quick reaction force from the CIA annex ignored orders to wait and raced to the compound, at times running and shooting their way through the streets, just to get there. Inside the compound, they repelled a force of as many as 60 armed terrorists and managed to save 5 American lives and recover the body of Foreign Service officer Sean Smith. They were forced to fight their way out before they could find the ambassador. Not long afterwards, Morgan Jones scaled the 12-foot-high wall of the compound that was still overrun with al-Qaeda fighters.
One guy saw me. He just shouted. I couldn't believe that he'd seen me because it was so dark. He started walking towards me.
And as he was coming closer?
As I got closer, I just hit him with the butt of the rifle in the face.
And?
Oh, he went down, yeah.
He dropped?
Yeah, like a stone.
With his face smashed in?
Yeah.
And no one saw you do it?
No.
Or heard it?
No, there was too much noise.
The same force that had gone to the compound was now defending the CIA annex. Hours later, they were joined by a small team of Americans from Tripoli. From defensive positions on these rooftops, the Americans fought back a professional enemy. In a final wave of intense fighting, just after 5 a.m., the attackers unleashed a barrage of mortars. 3 of them slammed into this roof, killing former Navy SEALs Tyrone Woods and Glenn Doherty. They hit that roof three times.
They hit those roofs 3 times.
In the dock.
Yeah, that's getting the basketball through the hoop over your shoulder.
What does it take to pull off an attack like that?
Coordination, planning, training, experienced personnel. They practiced those things. They knew what they were doing. That was a well-executed attack.
We have learned that there were 2 Delta Force operators who fought at the Annex, and they've since been awarded the Distinguished Service Cross and the Navy Cross, 2 of the military's highest honors. The Americans who rushed to help that night went without asking for permission, and the lingering question is why no larger military response ever crossed the border into Libya, something Greg Hicks realized wasn't going to happen just an hour into the attack. You have this conversation with the defense attaché. You ask him what military assets are on their way, and he says,
Effectively, they're not. And for a moment, I just felt lost. I just couldn't believe the answer. And then I made the call to the NX chief. I told him, listen, you've got to tell those guys there may not be any help coming.
That's a tough thing to understand. Why?
It just is. For us, for the people that go out onto the edge to represent our country, we believe that if we get in trouble, they're coming to get us. That our back is covered. To hear that it's not, it's a terrible, terrible experience.
The U.S. government today acknowledges the Americans at the U.S. compound in Benghazi were not adequately protected and says those who carried out the attack are still being hunted down. Just a few weeks ago, Abu Anas al-Libi was captured for his role in the Africa bombings, and the U.S. is still investigating what part he may have played in Benghazi. We've learned that this man, Sufyan Ben Kumu, a former Guantanamo Bay detainee and longtime al-Qaeda operative, was one of the lead planners, along with Faraj al-Chalabi, whose ties to Osama bin Laden go back more than 15 years. He's believed to have carried documents from the compound to the head of al-Qaeda in Pakistan. The morning after the attack, Morgan Jones went back to the compound one last time to document the scene. He took these photos, which he gave to the FBI, and has published in a book he's written. After all this time, he told us he's still haunted by a conversation he had with Foreign Service Officer Sean Smith a week before the attack.
Yeah, he was worried. He wasn't happy with the security.
And you didn't tell him all your worries?
No.
Why not?
I didn't want to worry him anymore, he's a nice guy. Yeah, I sort of promised him he'd be okay. And
You think about that?
every day, yeah.
The U.S. pulled out of Benghazi, and al-Qaeda has grown in power across Libya. When a member of our team went to the U.S. compound earlier this month, he found remnants of the Americans' final frantic moments still scattered on the ground. Among them, Ambassador Stevens' official schedule for September 12, 2012, a day he didn't live to see.
Go to 60minutesovertime.com to learn about our team's year-long investigation of the attack in Benghazi, sponsored by Pfizer.